The chamber stretched vast and cold, its walls carved from material that seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it. 47 species sat in their assigned seats, arranged in circles that rose higher and higher toward the domed ceiling where stars blazed through. Transparent metal Marcus Chun stood in the center. Alone on the speaker's platform, his gray hair caught the harsh lights above. His hands stayed calm at his sides, even though his heart hammered against his ribs. He had been Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council for 12 years, and in all that time, he had never felt such dread. The insectoid form of Velshara clicked across the upper tier, her compound eyes reflecting the light in ways that made Marcus think of broken glass. She was a crystal, one of the oldest species in the Council, and she hated humans with a passion that burned cold and patient. The Council recognizes Ambassador Velshara, the ancient voice of President. Thornax rumbled from the highest seat. Velshara's mandibles clicked in what Marcus had learned to recognize as pleasure. Honored members, her translated voice echoed through the chamber. We gather today to address a threat that has festered for 73 cycles. The human infestation. Marcus felt his jaw tighten, but he remained silent. Interrupting now would only make things worse. When the humans stumbled upon faster-than-light travel, Velshara continued, "We made a grave error. We welcomed them. We granted them membership. We believed they could be civilized." She paused, letting her words sink into the assembled aliens. "We were wrong." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber like wind through poisonous flowers. "Humans are aggressive," Velshara declared, her voice rising. "They are unpredictable. They refuse to accept their place in the natural order. Worse, they spread like a virus, like a plague claiming worlds, establishing colonies, demanding respect they have not earned." Marcus wanted to shout that humans had earned their place 1,000 times over. Humanity had shared technology freely, had mediated disputes between warring species, had contributed art and music and scientific discoveries to the galactic community. But he knew the truth. Nothing he said would matter here. The Council had already decided. "I propose the Terran limitation protocols," Velshara announced. And the chamber fell silent. Marcus felt ice form in his stomach. Velshara activated a holographic display. The terms appeared in burning letters that seemed to mock everything humans had worked for. Humanity would lose all voting rights in the Council. Human ships would be restricted to the Sol system only. All human colonies beyond Mars would be evacuated and surrendered. Human technology would be inspected and limited to approved levels. Only human military forces would be reduced to system defense only. No more than 50 vessels. The terms went on and on, each one more degrading than the last. "This is insane," Marcus finally shouted, unable to contain himself. "You cannot." Silence. Thornax's voice crashed down like thunder. "You will speak only when recognized." Human. The way he said human made it sound like a curse word. Marcus forced himself to breathe. He had to try. "President Thornax, I request permission to respond." The ancient being, something like a crystalline tree with too many branches, seemed to consider this. His form pulsed with colors. Marcus had never learned to read. "You may speak," Thornax said. Briefly, Marcus looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as he could, and there were so many kinds of eyes here. From the massive orbs of the aquatic Trellix to the heat-sensing pits of the serpentine Seth. "Honored Council members," he began, keeping his voice steady. "Humanity has been a loyal member of this body for 73 years. We have never broken galactic law. We have contributed. Velshara laughed, a chittering sound that made Marcus's skin crawl. "You have taken. You have demanded. You have expanded without permission. We followed all colonization protocols." Marcus shot back. You followed the letter of the law while violating its spirit. Another voice called out, this one belonging to Ambassador Grend, a massive creature covered in thick scales. Your kind does not understand. Subtlety, added a third voice. You are too young, said a fourth. Too aggressive. Too chaotic. Too human. The voices overlapped, building into a chorus of contempt that washed over Marcus like acid. He stood there, taking it, because what else could he do when the jeering finally died down? Thornax spoke again. The council will vote, he announced. All in favor of the Terran limitation protocols. Lights blazed across the chamber, 45 voices saying, yes, we agree. Humans must be contained. Opposed? 2 lights flickered. The young Lyran Collective and the mysterious architects, who rarely spoke at all. Abstaining? Silence. The protocols are adopted, Thornax declared. Humanity has 6 standard months to comply. Failure to do so will result in sanctions or worse. Marcus stood frozen as the council members began to leave, their various forms shuffling, slithering, floating toward the exits. Velshara paused as she passed him. You should have stayed in your little solar system. Human, she said quietly. Now you will learn what happens to species who reach beyond their grasp. Marcus watched her go. He did not trust himself to speak when the chamber was finally empty except for him and the cold stars above. Marcus allowed himself one moment of weakness. His hands shook. His eyes burned. 73 years of diplomacy had just died. He thought of Earth, of the colonies, of the millions of humans who had built lives among the stars, believing they were part of something greater. He thought of his granddaughter Maya, living on Proxima Colony with her parents, looking up at alien skies and dreaming of the future. What future did she have? Now Marcus straightened his jacket, squared his shoulders, and walked toward the exit. He had a long journey back to Earth, and when he arrived, he would have to deliver the worst news in human history since the resource wars. But as he walked through the empty corridor, something hardened inside him, something that had been soft and hopeful for too long. The council thought humanity would simply bow and accept this humiliation. The council, Marcus thought, had made a terrible mistake. They had forgotten what humans were truly capable of when pushed too far. Or perhaps they had never known in the first place. Either way, they would learn. Marcus Chen had spent 12 years being a diplomat, being patient, being civilized. Those days were over. Earth had never looked more beautiful than when Marcus Chen's shuttle descended through the atmosphere, breaking through clouds that glowed gold in the sunset. He should have felt relief to be home. But all he felt was the weight of what he carried. The landing pad at Geneva was crowded with people, news crews, government officials, citizens who somehow knew that everything had changed. Marcus stepped off the shuttle to find himself facing not anger, but something worse. Hope. They believed he had fought for them. They believed he had won something. Ambassador Chun. A reporter shouted. What did the council decide? Marcus looked at the cameras, at the eager faces, and felt something crack inside him. They have given us 6 months, he said quietly, to surrender everything we built. The crowd fell silent. In that silence, Marcus could hear the wind and nothing else. Within hours, the United Nations Stellar Command had assembled every ranking member of Earth's government. They gathered in a bunker beneath the Swiss Alps, in a room designed to survive anything except the truth Marcus brought them. Admiral Sarah Okonkwo sat at the head of the table, her dark eyes sharp as laser cuts. She was 53 years old and had commanded Earth's defense fleet for a decade. She had also lost her brother when a council peacekeeping vessel destroyed a human cargo ship under suspicious circumstances, an incident the council had never properly investigated. Tell us everything, she said. Marcus did. He held nothing back. The protocols, the contempt, the vote. When he finished, the room erupted. This is illegal under their own laws. We should appeal. They'll listen if we Enough. Okonkwo's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. They will not listen. They have never listened. This is not about law, this is about power, and they believe we have none. So what do we do? Someone asked, before anyone could answer. An aide rushed in, her face pale. Admiral, we're receiving emergency transmissions from Proxima Colony. Council peacekeepers have arrived. They're beginning relocation procedures. The room froze. Show me. Okonkwo commanded. The screens flickered to life, showing scenes that would burn themselves into human memory forever. Council ships, massive and cruel in their efficiency, hung over Proxima Colony like predatory birds. On the ground, peacekeepers in their various alien forms herded humans toward transport vessels. Families were separated, children crying for parents. An elderly man who moved too slowly was struck by a crystal enforcer, and then it happened. The moment everything truly broke, a group of colonists tried to resist, forming a protective circle around their community center. The peacekeepers opened fire with what they claimed were non-lethal weapons. Most of the humans fell, stunned and twitching. The one didn't get up. She was small, maybe 7 years old, with dark hair and her father's eyes. Marcus knew those eyes because they were his son's eyes. Maya, he whispered the little girl. His granddaughter lay still on the alien soil while her mother screamed, and her father tried to reach her through the wall of peacekeepers. The feed cut out. Marcus Chun, diplomat for 12 years, who had preached patience and understanding, who had believed in the possibility of peace, felt something inside him die and something else be born in its place. No more, he said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. No more patience. No more diplomacy. No more hoping they'll see us as equals. His voice grew stronger. They think we're weak. They think we'll simply accept this because we have no choice. We don't have a choice, someone said. They have thousands of ships. We have less than 300. Show them, Marcus said to Okonkwo. Show them what we really have. Okonkwo studied him for a long moment, then nodded. She pressed a series of commands into her personal terminal. The screens changed, showing images that made the assembled leaders gasp. Hidden facilities on the dark side of the moon, buried deep in lunar rock shipyards in the asteroid belt, camouflaged as mining operations, weapons that shouldn't exist, technologies that the Council had forbidden for 50 years. Okonkwo said quietly, "We have been preparing for this day. We hoped it would never come. We prayed the Council would accept us." She pulled up more images. Sleek warships, unlike anything in the Council's fleets, powered by drives that bent space itself. The Providence projects, she continued. Quantum entanglement weapons that can strike across light years. Aya warships that think faster than any organic mind. Dimensional shields that make our vessels nearly untouchable. Nanite swarms that can dismantle enemy ships atom by atom. That's impossible. Someone breathed. No. Dr. James Park spoke up from the corner where he had been silent until now. The elderly scientist looked tired, but his eyes blazed. It's human. We learned early that the Council would never share their advanced technology with us. So we developed our own. We didn't have their centuries of research, but we had something they lost long ago: desperation, creativity, and the willingness to take risks. This could start a war, a government official said. They already started the war, Marcus said, when they killed Maya. When they killed my granddaughter. Silence fell again, heavy, and absolutely. Okonkwo stood. We've a choice to make. We can surrender, dismantle our fleets, abandon our colonies, live as prisoners in our own solar system, or we can fight. If we fight, millions could die, someone said. Millions will die anyway, Marcus replied. Slowly, as they grind us down. Take our freedom piece by piece until there's nothing left of humanity except whatever they allow us to be. He looked around the table at these people who held the future in their hands. I spent 12 years believing in peace. I was wrong. Peace requires both sides to want it. The Council wants submission. They want us to know our place. He paused. I say we show them our place, and it's not on our knees. The vote was unanimous within 24 hours. Every human diplomat, merchant captain, and scientist across Council space received a coded message. It was simple. Just 2 words. Winter Piartiso. They all knew what it meant. They had all been waiting for it, hoping it would never come. Preparing as if it would across the galaxy. Humans began to move with purpose, and precision merchant vessels that had seemed slow and clumsy suddenly accelerated beyond what should be. Possible science ships shed their civilian disguises, revealing weapons and shields. Mining stations and remote systems activated. Defense grids that had been hidden for decades and on Earth. Admiral Sarah Okonkwo stood before her fleet, not the 300 ships the Council knew about, but the 2,000 vessels that had been built in secret, crewed by volunteers who understood what they were fighting for. She broadcast a message that would echo across every channel, every frequency, breaking through the Council's communications networks with technology they didn't know humans possessed. 73 years ago, humanity joined the Galactic Council in good faith. We offered friendship and received contempt. We offered cooperation and received exploitation. We offered peace and received chains. Her voice was calm, measured, and absolutely unyielding. Today, the Council killed a human child for the crime of living on a world her parents built. They call it peacekeeping. We call it murder. She paused, letting her words sink in to the Council. We say this. You had 73 years to treat us as equals. You chose otherwise. We gave you peace. You returned it with oppression. No longer will we bow. No longer will we beg. No longer will we hide what we are. Okonkwo raised her hand, and across human space, ships began to move. You wanted to see what humans are capable of when pushed too far. She smiled. And it was not a kind smile. Now you'll learn. The Council's surveillance network had monitored human space for 73 years. Watching every ship, tracking every transmission, ensuring that the primitive species stayed in their place then. In the span of 3 seconds, every monitoring station went dark and Nexus Prime, the station that housed the Council's central intelligence. Alarms screamed through corridors that had known only quiet efficiency for centuries. What happened? Demanded Overseer Krell, his forearms gesturing frantically at the blank screens. Unknown. His technician replied, her fur standing on end in distress. The entire network just vanished. That's impossible. The network has redundancies built upon redundancies. Sir, we're receiving a transmission. Origin Point Earth. Krell's blood ran cold. Show me. Dr. James Park's weathered face appeared on the screen. Behind him, what looked like a command center buzzed with activity. Greetings, Overseer Krell, Park said pleasantly, as if discussing the weather. I thought you should know we've been inside your systems for 47 years. Every surveillance drone, every monitoring station, every secure communication channel. He smiled. You were watching us. We were watching you watch us. Now we're done watching. The transmission ended. Get it back. Krell shouted. Restore the network. We're trying, sir. But there's something in the system. It's rewriting code faster than we can. The technician never finished. Her console exploded in sparks across Council space. Similar scenes played out. The great intelligence network that had given the Council eyes everywhere suddenly belonged to someone else. In the military shipyards orbiting the Crystal homeworld, Admiral Shenter was reviewing deployment orders when space itself seemed to tear. Open portals, shimmering tears in reality, materialized around the shipyards. Through them came vessels unlike anything in the Council's databases. Human ships, but not the clumsy freighters and slow exploration vessels the Council knew. These were predators, sleek and dark, their hulls seeming to drink in the light of the system's star. Battle stations. Shenta screamed into his communicator. The Council fleet tried to respond. Thousands of ships, representing the military might of 47 species, moved to intercept. They were too slow. The human ships moved like nothing Shenta had ever seen. One moment here, the next moment there, phasing through space as if the laws of physics were suggestions rather than rules. Weapons fire erupted across the void. The Council fleet poured enough firepower to crack planets. None of it touched the human vessels. Dimensional shields, the Park had called them. The Council's weapons simply passed through empty space while the human ships existed in a reality slightly adjacent to normal spacetime. Then the humans returned fire quantum entanglement. Weapons missiles that existed in two places at once until they struck. Nanite swarms that flowed like liquid mercury, taking apart Council ships atom by atom. AI-guided precision strikes that found weaknesses in armor that the Council didn't know existed, but the humans didn't destroy. They disabled engine cores were neutralized without explosion. Weapon systems were disassembled without casualties. Crew compartments were left intact and life support untouched. They're toying with us. Shenta whispered in horror. A transmission came through. Admiral Okonkwo's face appeared on every screen in the Council fleet. "We could have destroyed you," she said simply. "We chose not to. Surrender your weapons and you will be unharmed. Refuse, and we will simply take them." Shenta looked at his fleet. Mighty vessels of war, reduced to helpless hulks floating in space. "Stand down," he ordered. All ships, stand down. Similar scenes played out across a dozen systems simultaneously. Council military installations that had stood for centuries fell to human forces in hours, but the real target was Nexus Prime itself, the massive station large enough to hold a small moon in its central docking bay, had never been attacked. It was too well defended, too important. Too symbolically powerful. President Thornax stood in the Council chambers, watching reports streaming of defeat after defeat. This cannot be happening. Velshara chittered beside him, her mandibles clicking in agitation. They are primitives. They cannot. They are not primitives. The architect ambassador spoke for the first time in living memory. His form vaguely humanoid, but composed of energy rather than matter, pulsed with colors that suggested disapproval. They never were. You simply wanted to believe they were. Stay out of this, Thornax commanded. Your kind pledged neutrality. We pledged to observe, the architect corrected. We have observed. What we see displeases us. Before Thornax could respond, the station shuddered. Sir, a aide rushed in. Human forces are approaching. How many ships? All of them. Thornax rushed to the observation deck and felt his ancient heart falter. Thousands of human vessels surrounded Nexus Prime, not attacking, simply waiting. One ship approached, larger than the others. It broadcast a message. We are entering the station. You can open your docking bay, or we can make our own entrance. Choose. Thornax wanted to refuse. He wanted to order the station's formidable defenses to fire, but he had seen the reports. He knew what happened to ships that fought. Let them dock, he said, each word like poison. The human ship glided into the bay with impossible grace for something so large. Its boarding ramp extended, and a figure descended. Admiral Sarah Okonkwo walked across the docking bay, flanked by human soldiers in armor that seemed to shift and shimmer. She moved with purpose and confidence. Behind her, Marcus Chun followed. He wore no armor, just a simple suit, and his eyes held something that made Thornax's branches quiver. Not anger, but something colder. Certainty. They walked through the station unopposed. Council guards stood aside. Their weapons lowered. The council chambers' doors opened before them inside. The assembled species watched in shock as humans despised, dismissed, Degraded humans strode to the center of the chamber where Marcus had stood alone just weeks before. This time, he was not alone. Okonku gestured, and holographic displays materialized around the chamber. For 73 years, Marcus said, his voice echoing in the vast space. You told us we were lesser. You restricted us. You mocked us. You treated us as children who needed guidance. The displays began to show images, evidence that had been hidden in the Council's own encrypted files, now laid bare for all to see. Records of Council ships deliberately destroying human vessels and blaming it on accidents, communications, showing deliberate sabotage of human trade agreements, evidence of biological weapons tested on human colonists, proof that the Council had known about the Kriegstall death camps where lesser species were exterminated and had done nothing. You claimed you were civilized, Marcus continued. You claimed you represented order and peace. The images kept coming, genocide after genocide. Species after species erased from existence because they didn't fit the Council's vision. You are not peacekeepers, Okonkwo said. You are tyrants. The only difference between you and the monsters of our own history is that you convinced yourselves you were righteous. Velshara found her voice. You cannot judge us. You know nothing of maintaining order across the galaxy. We know tyranny when we see it. Marcus cut her off. We fought it on our own world 100 times. We recognize it in whatever form it takes. Thornax's S-form pulsed with colors that suggested rage. You are a young species. You have no right. We have the right of the sword, Okonkwo said flatly. We have proven we can take what we want by force. She paused. But we won't. Because unlike you, we understand that might does not make right. She gestured again, and new images appeared, not of war but of proposals. A new galactic government with equal representation, independent oversight of all member species, protection for younger civilizations, accountability for crimes against sentient life. We don't want to rule you, Marcus said. We want you to be better. The galaxy deserves better than this Council has given it. And if we refuse? Thornax asked. The architect ambassador stepped forward. Then we will no longer remain neutral. His voice resonated with power that made the station tremble. The architects have watched for 1,000,000 years. We have seen civilizations rise and fall. We intervene only when necessary. His form blazed brighter. This is necessary. The Council leadership is dissolved. A new assembly will form. The humans have shown the way, and we will ensure it is followed. Thornax sagged. Around the chamber, Council members sat in stunned silence. It was over. The old order had fallen, not to invasion, but to truth. Marcus looked at Velshara. You asked what humans are capable of, he said quietly. Now you know. We are capable of forgiving even those who wronged us, if they're willing to change. He turned to address the entire assembly. The question is, are you? The Council's surrender at Nexus Prime should have ended the war. But power dies hard, and those who held it for centuries do not release it willingly in the outer systems. Far from the core worlds where the architects watched, Council loyalists gathered their forces. Velshara had escaped Nexus Prime before the humans could arrest her, and she had found allies among those who feared change more than death. We are the elder species. She broadcast to the assembled fleet, nearly 1,000,000 ships drawn from 24 civilizations. We will not bow to primitives. We will not surrender the order we have maintained for eons. The loyalist fleet moved toward human space. And Admiral Okonkwo watched them come. They still don't understand, she said to Marcus Chun, who stood beside her on the bridge of the flagship Indomitable. They will, Marcus replied. One way or another, the two fleets met at Arcturus Gate, a critical junction point where 6 major trade routes intersected. The Council loyalists came in waves, massive dreadnoughts flanked by thousands of support vessels. Enough firepower to reduce planets to rubble. The human fleet numbered only 600 ships. The battle should have been a massacre. According to every tactical simulation, every strategic analysis, humanity should have been annihilated in the first hour. Instead, what followed became legend. The human vessels moved like dancers, like predators, like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. AI warships, beings of pure thought housed in metal, calculated trajectories and responses faster than organic minds could comprehend. Lieutenant Amara Singh piloted her fighter through the chaos, her craft responding to her thoughts through neural interface. Around her, Council ships fired in patterns designed to overwhelm and destroy. She slipped through the barrage like water through fingers. "Phoenix Squadron, follow my lead," she transmitted. "Remember your training. They think in lines and formations. We think in dimensions." Her squadron, just 12 fighters, dove into the enemy fleet. They didn't engage the massive dreadnoughts directly. Instead, they targeted the communication arrays, the coordination nodes, the vulnerable points that turned an organized fleet into a confused mass. The Council ships were powerful but slow, designed for battles where fleets lined up and traded blows until one side fell. Human ships didn't line up. They appeared, struck, and vanished into quantum tunnels before return fire could connect. "Ma'am," Singh's wingman called out. "I count 15 destroyers moving to flank." "I see them," Singh replied. She didn't try to avoid. Instead, she accelerated directly toward them. The destroyers opened fire. Energy beams cut through space where her fighter had been milliseconds before. She activated her dimensional phaser technology that the Council had deemed impossible, and her ship existed in two realities simultaneously. The enemy fire passed through empty space, while she materialized behind the destroyer formation. A spread of quantum missiles launched from her wings. Each missile split into 100 possibilities, existing in all of them until impact. The destroyer's shields tried to respond but couldn't track targets that existed in multiple states at once. 15 ships disabled in 10 seconds across the battlefield. Human vessels executed similar impossible maneuvers. Nanite swarms flowed from launch tubes, breaking into clouds that enveloped Council ships and began selective disassembly. Weapon systems corroded. Engines failed, but life support remained intact. "They're not trying to kill us," a Council captain realized with horror. "They're trying to prove they could." The battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, the Council loyalist fleet had lost 70% of its vessels, not destroyed, but disabled, floating helplessly in space. Human casualties: 3 ships damaged, 0 destroyed, 47 wounded, 2 dead. The galaxy watched in shock on New Horizon, one of humanity's furthest colonies. The battle took a different form. Council ground forces had landed before the fleet engagement, determined to take hostages and force human surrender. They had not accounted for how fiercely humans defended their homes. Governor Rebecca Stone stood on the colony walls, hastily erected fortifications that shouldn't have held against modern weapons, and watched the enemy approach. "They've got armor," someone said nervously. "Heavy weapons." "We're farmers and engineers, not soldiers. We're human," Stone interrupted. "That makes us more dangerous than they can imagine." The Council forces expected easy conquest. Instead, they met resistance that defied logic. Farmers used mining equipment as weapons. Engineers reprogrammed construction drones into defenders. Children, who should have been cowering, instead coordinated guerrilla attacks, using tactics learned from human history. Vietnam, Afghanistan, countless insurgencies where determination defeated technology. A Kriegstyle battalion commander watched his forces bogged down in street fighting against civilians and felt the first whisper of fear. "They won't surrender," his aide reported. "We've captured the administration building, but they keep coming." They fight with tools, with rocks, with their bare hands. They're insane, the commander muttered. No, a voice said behind him. He spun to find human soldiers inactive. Camouflage special forces who had infiltrated behind enemy lines. We're home, the lead soldier said simply before the stun grenades went off. New Horizon held. Every human colony under attack held. The council had forgotten that humans had spent their entire history at war with each other and had learned lessons in violence that most species hoped to never need. But Velshara was not finished. In her flagship hidden in a dark nebula, she plotted her final move. If we cannot defeat them, she told her remaining allies, we will ensure they pay such a price that they beg for peace on our terms. She activated weapons that the council had kept secret for 1,000 years. Planet killers. Devices that could crack worlds and boil away atmospheres. Aim them at Earth, she commanded. If we destroy their homeworld, their spirit will break. The weapons launched 3 massive missiles that bent space around them, accelerating to near-light speed on Earth. Alarms screamed. Humanity's homeworld, birthplace of the species, target of ultimate revenge. Marcus Chun stood in the command center and watched the missiles approach on the display. Can we intercept? He asked. No, the tactical officer replied, her voice breaking. They're too fast, too well shielded. They'll reach Earth in 20 minutes. Around him, people began to weep. This was it, the end of everything. Then space itself tore open. The architects, silent observers for 1,000,000 years, intervened. Their ships, if they could be called ships, materialized in the path of the planet killers. They were beings of pure energy, ancient beyond measure, and they had watched the council's atrocities long enough. The planet killer missiles struck the Serco architect vessels and simply stopped, not destroyed, not deflected. Stopped, as if the very concept of their forward motion had been deleted from reality. This ends now. The architect ambassador's voice resonated across every channel in council space. For 1,000,000 years we have observed. For 1,000,000 years we have refrained from interference. But there are lines that must not be crossed. His form blazed with power. The old council leadership has hereby declared in violation of galactic law. Any who continue to support them will face judgment. Not from humans, but from us. Velshara watched her weapons fail and felt her certainty crumble. We were maintaining order, she transmitted. Weakly, you were maintaining tyranny, the architect replied. There is a difference. The humans understand it. You never did. Across space, the remaining loyalist forces surrendered. Without the planet killers, without hope of victory, with the architects themselves opposing them, resistance became meaningless. Velshara's flagship was boarded by human forces. She did not fight as they placed her in restraints. Marcus Chun came to her cell before the trial. Why? He asked. Simply. Velshara's mandibles clicked slowly. We were here first. We built this civilization. And you humans arrived like children, demanding respect you hadn't earned. We earned it every day for 73 years, Marcus said. You were just too proud to see it. He turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I pity you. You could have had all eyes, friends, partners in building something beautiful. Instead, you chose to make enemies. You got exactly what you chose. The door closed, leaving Velshara alone with the ruins of her certainty on the bridge of the Indomitable. Admiral Okonkwo received the final casualty reports. The war had lasted 3 weeks. Human losses: 47 ships, 812 dead. 3,000 wounded. Council losses: incalculable, but the victory felt hollow as Okonkwo thought of those 812 names. 812 people who would never see what came next. Ma'am, her communications officer said. We're receiving messages from across council space. Over 20 species are requesting human aid. They say they want to join the new assembly. Okonkwo allowed herself a small smile. "Tell them we'll talk," she said. "But first, we have work to do." The war was over. The hard part, building peace, was about to begin. 6 months after the war ended, Marcus Chun stood in a courtroom that had never existed before, a place where galactic justice would be administered not by the powerful, but by the principle of law itself. President Thornax, Valshara, and 43 other former council leaders sat in restraints, facing charges that read like a catalog of horror: genocide, slavery, unlawful imprisonment, murder, crimes against sentient life. The judges came from species that had never before had a voice: young civilizations, oppressed populations, even some from the council's own worlds, who had watched in silence as their leaders committed atrocities. "How do you plead?" The lead judge asked Thornax. The ancient being's crystalline form pulsed with dull colors. "We maintained order for 10,000 years. Our actions were necessary. That was not the question," the judge interrupted. "How do you plead?" Thornax seemed to deflate. "Guilty," he whispered. One by one, the other defendants entered their pleas. Some maintained their innocence until confronted with evidence they could not deny. Some asked for mercy. Valshar alone remained defiant to the end. "You will regret this," she hissed at the judges. "Without us, the galaxy will fall to chaos. The galaxy survived before you," Marcus said from his seat in the observer section. "It will survive after." The trials took months. When they concluded, sentences were handed down, not execution, which would have made martyrs, but permanent exile to a prison world where the convicted could live out their days contemplating what they had done. "Justice," Admiral Okonkwo said as she watched the transport ships depart, "is sometimes just removing those who refuse to change." Marcus nodded. He felt no satisfaction in their punishment, only a quiet relief that it was over. The real work happened in the massive station being constructed in neutral space, a structure so large it would take years to complete. Designed by cooperation between dozens of species, they called it Horizon. It would house the new Galactic Assembly, built on principles that humanity had insisted upon: equal representation regardless of a species' age or technology, level transparent governance with all decisions publicly recorded, independent judiciary not controlled by political powers, protection for developing civilizations against exploitation, mandatory intervention in cases of genocide or slavery. The architects had agreed to enforce these principles, not as rulers, but as guardians, a role they accepted with solemn weight. "We should have intervened sooner," the architect ambassador told Marcus during one planning session. "We told ourselves that younger species needed to find their own way. We see now that neutrality in the face of evil is itself evil." Marcus appreciated the admission, but found no comfort in it. "Maya would still be alive if you had," he said quietly. "Yes," the architect agreed. "We carry that failure. We will not make the same mistake again." Construction of Horizon Station proceeded at remarkable speed. Species that had been enemies weeks before now worked side by side. A Crixtel engineer designed structural supports alongside a human architect. A Trellix water system specialist coordinated with a Lyran environmental planner watching them work. Dr. James Park felt something he hadn't allowed himself in decades: hope. "We're actually going to do this," he said to Okonkwo as they toured the construction site. "Don't sound so surprised," she replied with a slight smile. "Humans have always been good at building things. We just usually have to tear something down first." "What happens to the Providence weapons?" Park asked. "The II warships, the dimensional shields, all of it?" Okonkwo was quiet for a long moment. "Some of it we'll share carefully, with safeguards. The rest we'll keep." She looked at him. "I know that sounds hypocritical after everything we said about the Council hoarding technology." "No," Park interrupted. It sounds realistic. Trust takes time. Until then, we need to ensure we can protect those who can't protect themselves. Peacekeepers, Okonkwo said. Not conquerors. The difference, Park said, is knowing which is which. On Earth, memorials were being built for those who died in the war. The largest stood in Geneva, where the old United Nations building had once housed Earth's government. 812 names were carved into black stone. At the top, in letters larger than the rest, Maya Chun, age 7. Proxima Colony Marcus visited it every day. Sometimes he brought flowers. Sometimes he simply stood in silence. Today he brought someone with him, his son David, Maya's father, who had returned from Proxima bearing scars both visible and hidden. I'm sorry, Marcus said. The words inadequate and necessary. David looked at his father with eyes that had seen too much. You didn't kill her. I failed to protect her. You couldn't have known. I should have. Marcus's voice broke. I saw what they were. I knew they would never accept us. I spent 12 years hoping for peace when I should have been preparing for this. David put a hand on his father's shoulder. You did prepare. The Providence projects, the hidden fleets, that was all happening while you were negotiating. You tried peace first. There's no shame in that. She died because I wasn't ready to give up on peace sooner. She died, David said firmly, because evil people made evil choices. You didn't make those choices. You fought against them. Because of you, because of what you did, no other child will die the way Maya did. Marcus wanted to believe that. Some days, he almost could. A year after the war, the Galactic Assembly held its first official session in the completed Horizon Station representatives. From 89 species filled the chamber, not the tiered circles of the old council that literally elevated some above others, but a round chamber where all sat as equals. Marcus Chen was there, no longer as ambassador from a lesser species, but as one of the Assembly's founding architects. Admiral Sarah Okonkwo was there too, now commanding the Assembly Defense Force, a fleet built from contributions from all member species, with humans providing the core technology and training. Dr. James Park had retired to teach at the new Galactic University, where students from across space learn not just science but ethics, history, and the terrible lessons of what happens when power goes unchecked. The first session opened with a 5-day moment of silence for all those who had died under the old councils. Rule. Millions of names from hundreds of species, including 812 humans. Then they got to work. There were disputes immediately, territorial claims, resource allocation, cultural conflicts that had simmered for centuries. But instead of the old council's method of imposing solutions from above, the Assembly talked. They argued. They compromised. It was messy and frustrating, and sometimes painfully slow. It was democracy. And it was beautiful. During a break, Valshara's successor as Crixtel representative approached Marcus. Ambassador Chen, she said formally, her mandibles clicking in the pattern Marcus had learned meant respect. I wanted to say on behalf of my people, we are sorry for what was done to yours. Marcus studied her. Are you saying that because it's expected or because you mean it? Both, she admitted. My people are learning that sometimes what is expected is also what is right. Marcus nodded. That's honest. I can work with honest. They shook hands, or rather, Marcus's hand and her foreleg touched in the gesture that had become standard across the Assembly. Small steps toward healing. 20 years past Horizon Station had grown into a small city in space, home to 500,000 beings from hundreds of species. Children played in parks where artificial gravity kept them safe, speaking languages that mixed human words with alien concepts. The Assembly Defense Force patrolled the galaxy, intervening where the old council had ignored suffering. 3 times they stopped genocides in progress. Twice they mediated disputes that would have become wars, and always the human ships were there, faster, more advanced. more capable than anyone else seasoned species, whispered that humans had simply replaced the council as the dominant power. Marcus, now elderly but still sharp, addressed those concerns directly. Yes, he told the assembly during a contentious debate. Humanity has the most powerful fleet. Yes, we have technology others don't. Yes, we could impose our will if we chose. He paused, looking around the chamber at faces both familiar and strange. We choose not to. Not because we're saints, we're not. But because we remember what it felt like to be powerless. We remember what it cost to gain our freedom. We will not take from others what was taken from us. How can we trust that future generations will feel the same? A representative asked. You can't, Marcus said bluntly. That's why we've agreed to the oversight protocols. That's why assembly inspectors have full access to our military facilities. That's why we've helped other species develop defensive technology. He stood straighter despite his age. Trust isn't given. It's earned. Humanity will earn it every day, or you should absolutely stop trusting us. That's what accountability means. The vote on renewing humanity's peacekeeping mandate passed with 82% approval on Earth. Marcus visited the memorial one final time before his scheduled retirement. He was 93 years old. His son David stood beside him, now gray-haired himself. David's daughter, named Maya, after the sister she'd never met, held her own child in her arms, 4 generations standing before one name carved in stone. Did we make it mean something? Marcus asked quietly. Her death, did it lead to something better? David looked at his granddaughter, safe and happy in a galaxy where children didn't die for the crime of existing. Yes, he said. We made it mean something.